Throughout the 4 decades of its existence, Zoids has never completely made sense. Sometimes they're inexplicably made out of cubes, sometimes they're wind-up toys, sometimes they're motorized toys, or, sorry, motorized model kits, which are different from the non-motorized model kits, and also different from the motorized non-model kits, or the wind-up non-model kits, or these non-motorized non-wind-up non-model non-kits. Hi, I'm Jett, and I've been on a month-long research vision quest to figure out what Zoids are, where they came from, and why they never seem to stick around for very long despite being an ongoing brand in Japan. For the first time in decades, you might be able to find these Zoids kits at a store near you right now, which feels significant. There's even a whole new animation for the series, which feels significant. Things are happening with Zoids, so I've put together the most concise possible explainer with all of the most interesting tidbits from this 40-year-long history. I intend to make a second video next month that'll dive into the nitty-gritty physicality of each Zoids toy series to compare what differs in the toys from one line to the next, and how the whole thing has evolved over time. In this one, though, because I'm aiming to be simple and concise for newcomers, some of these statements might sound a bit oversimplified to any of the die-hard Zoid heads. But come on, I'm indoctrinating people over here! So what's a Zoid then? Great question, because when I was a kid, I never got the chance to find out. The base cool factor of big mecha animals that fight each other was enough to completely entrance me as a kid, having first seen them in Toonami bumper ads around 2002. I had seen that the toys could walk, I thought the visor cockpit design was aesthetically transcendent, I liked blue, and boy, that cat could blue. It didn't matter that I had no clue what the toys actually were. I wanted one. Given that I was 4, my parents refused to negotiate with my terrorist demands. That was wise, given that, straight out of the box, the toys look like this. My dad was confident that I was too young to follow the building instructions. I remember thinking, oh buddy, I'm gonna buy so many Zoids when I'm old enough and have a bunch of money. But by the time I was old enough, Zoids weren't being imported anymore, and I still don't have a bunch of money. And so they've remained largely a mystery to me for the past 2 decades. That was until I found these in, of all places, Hobby Lobby. It's been so long since I've seen a Zoid on US shelves that they feel like ancient artifacts. The T-Spark Realize Model ZOIDS seem for all the world like normal frickin' plastic model kits, but on the Zoids subreddit, everyone seems to be absolutely loving the things. To understand what makes them unique in the long history of this brand, I went back to the beginning. When Tomy first released Zoids in the 80s, they were simple wind-up walking kits, which barely looked like animals, didn't have any lore, and they weren't called Zoids, they were called something else. There's some dispersions about how accurate this next bit is, but the legend goes, the kits flopped in Japan, and only upon re-release in the US market were they renamed to Zoids and seem to have sold much more okay. Tomy and Takara used to be 2 different companies. Takara had a bunch of random disconnected transforming toy brands, which Hasbro imported as one unified toy line that no one's ever heard of before. Hasbro gave it a story by saying, these ones are the good guys, and these ones are the bad guys. That seems like a pretty good idea, said Tomy, wiggling their fingers like this and adding, ooh, don't mind if I do. So when they made more wind-up walking kits for the Japanese market, they kept the Zoids name and gave them lore. The red ones are Imperialists, and the blue ones are a Republic, and both of them are a bunch of bastards. They were when the battle story began anyway, which is... Patience, children. We'll get there in due time. This second line of Japanese Zoids is where the toy line's aesthetics really codified. Motorized, battery-powered Zoids were introduced on top of the wind-up ones. and Tomy started to follow the rule of cool almost religiously. Dinosaurs are cool, so a lot of Zoids are dinosaurs. Big cats are cool, so a lot of Zoids are big cats. This one is an evil snail. They basically nailed it with these designs, to the point where these creatures have been re-released and recolored and re-released again over and over and over again for the next 30 years, through numerous renamings and identity crises, all alongside a fairly steady flow of new kits. If a creature is popular, you'll see that creature over and over again. And when you don't, it's probably because it's an evil snail. Phase 1 of Zoids ended in 1990. There were a few flash-in-the-pan recolor reboot attempts in the middle there, with Kenner's Techno Zoids, which flopped, and Zoids 2, which flopped, and then the series revived with a passion out of nowhere in 1999, this time with an anime. Before that, the narrative of Zoids had only been shown entirely through blurbs on packaging and like a handful of magazines. That was the so-called battle story, a bloody-knuckled complex war on the planet Z. At first, it was portrayed as a fairly gray political conflict between the native Zoidian populations. No clear good guy, but later iterations of the story tended to pigeonhole the blue Helic Republic as the good guys and the red Xenobus Empire / Gylos Empire as the bad guys. Our blue guardians, their red mutants. Our eternal president, their wicked king. Our noble mounts, their savage war machines. Things only pop off when a multi-generational spaceship from Earth crash lands on the planet Z, the new Earthian technology speeding up the war 30-fold into a biomechanical bloodbath with the development of Battle Zoids. Yes, there is a distinction between Battle Zoids and normal Zoids. And yes, they're kind of, sort of biomechanical, but put a pin in that. Actually, no, take the pin out. I need to explain this. Zoids are animals. Their life cycle begins with a Zoid core floating around in the heavy metal rich oceans of Z. The core just kinda sucks in metal from the sea and forms a robotic body around itself, starting with simple limbs and then getting more complicated, presumably guided by DNA? Because the core is like organic inside. Zoids evolved to have all of their vital organs trapped inside a hard, impenetrable metal shell. But the shell is, regardless, full of organs, at least in the original battle story lore. A battle Zoid is created by harvesting a Zoid core from inside a wild Zoid, and then building an artificial body around it with guns and thrusters and USB-C ports. Remember when I said both of the factions were bastards in the original story?
Never forget what they did to you.
This is not the lore in most Zoids media. Probably. Most of the shows don't really go into it with this level of detail. They just kind of shrug and go, come on, it's Zoids. There's Zoids everywhere. What are you gonna do? Come on. The first mass-produced battle Zoid was the Republic's Gojulus, a big Godzilla-looking dinosaur freak. Early on, the Republic sends 200 Godzillas stomping towards the Empire. And then the Empire counters by sending out 150 King Kongs that they just made. That's hundreds of Godzilla versus King Kongs happening at the same time all throughout the city, and the King Kongs win. That's the start. This battle sets off a never-ending arms race. Capitals are falling, existing Zoids are becoming obsolete as fast as they can make new ones, the Emperor gets deposed to the Dark Continent, and the war finally ends, just for an intercontinental war to start the very same year, now the Gylos Empire instead of the Xenobus Empire. All of this was told via blurbs on toy packaging. It goes on and builds into a climactic battle with the most powerful Zoid ever, King Gojulus, stomping towards the Gylos capital, when a comet comes out of nowhere and slams into one of Z's moons, ending the story on a cliffhanger. And presumably at some point in there, someone thought it pertinent to build an evil snail. Despite being really frickin' awesome, none of this was ever translated for the international packaging. No, the English boxes were functionally blank, leaving little white boys no more lore than their Lincoln Logs had. When Zoids returned in 1999 with the start of Phase 2, the battle story picked up a full 30 years later, after the Comet disaster, with a narrative that was completely disconnected from the anime that started airing at the very same time. The Comet storyline wouldn't get resolved until the 25th anniversary. Why continue that story so late? For to be re-releasing old toys, you silly goose. Point is, the poor little white boys, and even boys that weren't necessarily white, didn't get a Zoids story. Unless you count Spider-Man and Zoids in the UK. Oh, you'd like to know about Spider-Man and Zoids? A comic book that ran for 51 entire issues, completely disconnected from every other piece of Zoids lore, and which didn't feature Spider-Man at all, but did have Darth Vader on one of the covers? You want to know about the 1980s Zoids comic co-written by Grant Morrison? Yeah, I'd like to know too. Anyway, I keep glossing over it, but let's talk about the anime. First, there was Chaotic Century, which did broadly involve the war between the Gylos Empire and the Helic Republic, but it didn't fit in with the battle story lore in any way. It's about an orphan named Van getting tangled up in the war. In Japan, his name is Bang. Despite the fact that it was just a random, not super significant kit from 1983, Van's signature Zoid was the Blue Shield Liger. Nowadays, it's the closest thing the series has to a Pikachu or a Dragonoid as a result of that choice. While Chaotic Century was the first anime that aired in Japan, it was the second series, Zoids New Century, that was initially dubbed and aired on Toonami. Some think this is all because of Pokemon, and considering that everything happening around that time, and basically everything since, definitely is because of Pokemon, it's probably a safe guess. This was Zoids' return to the West, and with it, Hasbro started selling kits at retail. To my understanding, Hasbro changed some things, as Hasbros are wont to do, but a Zoids kit is a Zoids kit. See how him walk. See how him strut. Zoids New Century very much wasn't a war story. Instead, it followed BitCloud and the iconic Liger Zero, and some other guys doing, some bull. I don't know. It's like sanctioned competitive Zoid battling in the desert with like tournaments and stuff. There are many good videos on YouTube that talk about the ups and the downs of the anime, like this one from Billiam. Genesis introduced Bio Zoids with rubberized skins on the outside to make them look more alive, maybe? And both Fusers and Genesis had lots of Zoids made out of little cubes, named Blocks in Japan and Z-Builders in America. Way dumbed down on the complexity. The focus was on mixing parts from different Zoids to create your own special Zoid that you like so much. It begs a question that may be tantamount to why this brand has come and gone so many times. Who was Zoids for? And what were you supposed to do with them? Were they motorized toys for little kids to play with by having them walk around and bump into each other? Or were they model kits for older model kit builders to use nice nippers on and sand down and panel line?
Hey, all that arguing talks about demographics, that makes it small and specific. What is he proposing?
Look, I know, okay? I know. Obviously, there's a false dichotomy there. There's plenty of crossover between those demographics, and no one should be pigeonholed into any one arbitrary group. But demographics are not meant to prescribe traits to individuals, they are meant to describe trends within very large populations and then capitalize on them. It's easy to say that Zoids are for anyone who thinks that Zoids are cool, because it's true, but that doesn't help you when you need to decide whether to put an ad in a hobby magazine or on Cartoon Network. It's a mechanism of capitalism that's worth questioning when we're questioning capitalism, but when we're talking about why a brand succeeds or fails within capitalism, it's pertinent to understand these mechanics. There are many individuals who see a really nice, high-end, motorized Zoid and go, nice, that's whimsical and complex, like me. I am one of those individuals, but that is not most people. When you look at a population scale, unless they grew up with Zoids, most adult hobbyists who build complex models are gonna see the walking gimmick and think it's much too childish. They'll care that it limits posability, that it limits anime accuracy. Meanwhile, most of the kids who'd be really drawn in by a big dinosaur that stomps around are gonna balk at a box full of runners. I was writing this and I was thinking, hey, you could easily make a political compass style square out of this. So I did. There's one axis for complexity, which could also be called detail, and another axis for gimmickiness, which could also be called play features. X is detail, Y is play features. In the square of low complexity and high gimmickiness, you have most children. And all the way in the corner, you have most American children. Down here in the opposite corner, low gimmickiness and high complexity, you find die-hard hobbyists. They seek something they can display, that'll look cool, but also something challenging so the building process won't be over too quickly. In the past, these would have been the people who built ships in bottles, and in the present, these are people with a backlog of 20 kits. Then up here, you have man-children, gender neutral. And up above that, you have ascended man-children, which is the most fun kind of person to be. Finally, swing down to the lower left and you'll find entry-level hobbyists. They like the brand, or they want to get into it, but they're normal people with normal jobs, and yeah, they really gotta get around to watching that show. Everyone says it's really good. They need something that won't make them feel like a weird little toy baby, but also won't take a month of free time to complete. These two corners, top and bottom left, are the most populous, because these kids grow up into these adults. Some of them grow up into these adults, which, although more rare, is just as profitable of a market, because die-hard hobbyists are your whales. They'll spend a whole lot of money on just a few products that'll last them a while, or they buy literally everything you put out. The top right square is mostly former bronies and people who like the unsets of Magic the Gathering, and no one has figured out how to talk to them yet. For most of its run, Zoids is just kinda around here in the middle, up and down and left and right depending on the day. You'd hit plenty of people that way, because plenty of people live in this middle zone. But you aren't gonna hit a lot of people super strongly. That is the challenge that Zoids faces. And it's a challenge that Zoids may have already solved. In 2006, after Hasbro and Tomy had largely stopped throwing sprues at the wall to see what might stick, Tomy partnered with Kotobukiya to produce a line of non-motorized Zoids model kits dubbed HMMs, or High-End Master Models. The intent was anime accuracy, box art accuracy, to create Zoids that could move and pose in ways the Energizer Bunny can't possibly imagine. And they are not lying when they say high-end. If a motorized Zoid has between 60 to 100 or so parts, the equivalent HMM has like 400 to 550. Some of those parts are minuscule. Some of the parts need glue to stay firmly attached, despite the fact that they're meant to snap together. These are highly advanced kits for highly advanced model builders, and the quality absolutely shows. They realized that there was a demographic of older Zoid fan who might value a solid model above all else. Or they saw other brands making high-end kits and figured they could pull some of those people into Zoids by making kits to match. They saw a demographic and laser focused in, calling an orbital strike to hit one very specific kind of guy, and it worked. This series has run unbroken, incredibly well-selling for nearly 20 years. In 2008, they did Rebirth Century, the aforementioned Anniversary series with re-release of old wind-up and motorized kits, and the continuation of the original battle story. It only ran for a year. Meanwhile, Kotobukiya...
I can't stop winning! I I can't stop winning! I can't stop winning! I can't stop winning!
8 years pass by before Tomy tries their hand at a motorized Zoid once again. In 2016, Tomy, now merged with Takara to become launches 2 masterpiece Zoids, 2 super high-end motorized kits that I'm not going to go into detail about because I'm going to save it for next video. But let me tell you, they are laser-focused targeted to me specifically and the precise whimsy that I find valuable. They're really, really cool, but something like this is always going to appeal to a smaller demographic. Smaller than the demo for HMMs, and way smaller than kids who like toys and dinosaurs who generally aren't gonna be capable of building something this complex. If only.
Target acquired.
In 2018, Takara Tomy orbital strikes the child demographic with Zoids WILD. This time it's all toyetic. Toyetic to the bone! Wind-ups are back. Motorized kits are back. Sprues never matter. These parts are pre-cut so you can get straight into assembling. The mechanics are simple and effective. Zoids for kids were back. And the older fans mostly didn't like them very much. The aesthetics were really different, and I'm sure it felt like quite a step down from HMMs, but it didn't really matter, because HMMs were still being made, and Zoids WILD was popping off with Japanese children. There was an anime, a buttload, nay, a metric butt ton of sets. Hasbro took notice. They went full steam ahead to import Zoids with a huge launch planned for 2020. Oh no. Unfortunately, Hasbro's Zoids import didn't reach a wide release on account of the issues and the struggles, likely influenced by complex pandemic-era economics. You can still find these localized kits on the internet, but unlike your mom, the release wasn't wide. And don't get me wrong, your mom is a beautiful lady, and so were the 2020 Hasbro Zoids kits. At the end of the day, the concept came, and the concept went, and the poor little race-ambiguous, gender-neutral American boys remain Zoidsless. HMMs are still going in Japan, and that leaves 2 major demographics still unlasered. One, older collectors like me who really like the motorized gimmicks and complex kits, but whom are not drawn in by the simplicity of Wild. And 2, Zoids fans who want show-accurate models of characters they like, but aren't super intense high-end model kit builders. As for the former demo, they've been making AZ line Zoids ever since the 40th anniversary, which are way more complex, way more elaborate kits, much like the Masterpiece Zoids from 2016, with super complex motorized animations. This is everything that I love most, but I'm gonna dive into them more in the next video. Finally, for the latter demographic, at long last, we arrive at these kits by Takara Tomy's new collectibles branch, T-Spark. These are RMZs, or Realize Model ZOIDS, the brand new line of entry-level plastic model kits based on iconic Zoids. The first 2 are Blade Liger from Chaotic Century and Command Wolf, another iconic Zoid. They're about as complex as a high-grade Gundam, which makes them perfect entry-level kits for just about anyone who remembers the show, or anyone who sees giant mecha beasts and thinks they look cool and want to play ball. And with their introduction, every corner of the Zoids fandom spectrum has been filled. If they keep all 4 branches going in tandem, avoid overproducing, and maintain the high Takara Tomy quality standard, Zoids might genuinely be entering a new golden era. Just last month, they put out a new Zoids animation featuring both Blade Liger and Liger Zero, with the original voice actors of both Van and Bit teaming up to defeat an absolutely terrifying portrayal of Death Sorer. It's a very cool short. Card in the corner, link below. The Realize kits are already being distributed in the West, and honestly, they are the best place for you to start with Zoids in the modern era. Any fan of Gunpla is going to have a new kind of fun with a Zoids kit, if not partially because their structure is so different to the same old featherless bipeds of a standard mecha kit. And beyond just these two, there are a good half dozen more Realize models already announced, including a Liger Zero. In the next video, I'm gonna go deep into the RMZ kits, contrasting and comparing with Zoids past, probably building an AZ Zoid, as well as a lot of the stuff that I skipped over, like the Optimus Prime Zoid, the Evangelion Zoid, the VTuber Zoid, and for the first time ever, women. Subscribe now to be sure you don't miss it, and comment below where you first heard about Zoids and what you thought of them at the time. I would really like to know if anyone else's experience was a bit like mine. Thank you to the Iron Bible, which was a massive resource to me in researching this video, and thank you to Takara Tomy for sponsoring me to make this. A Zoids video has been in the Jett pipeline for ages. Tons of my fans have requested it, but Takara Tomy's support has given me the push to finally make it happen. So thank you for watching. This is Jett, and I'll see you next time. I love my patrons on patreon.com/JettKuso. They help me so much, especially my diamond patrons LUCID, LANA, CHOOKA, Baron, RAZU, RIONs. Less so, but still very much so, my Titan patrons, Sierra 107, Gusano, Banana Jones, Chell, Douglas, Fern, and HeartlineDai. My hyper patrons, Trouble, Mudorios, Orio, Forrest DC, Kevin Haji, Sam Caesar, James 70, Hateincarnate. They're all so cool, and I even got some brand new base patrons. Lim, Jonathan Corona. They all just joined. They're awesome, and you should be awesome too. Thanks, everyone.